save his family. And I just had a very close relationship with him. And, well, he's been part of my life always, but still, I regret I never got to know him as an adult. But he had a very, very great influence on me, I feel, who I have become.
Say more about that. How do you think he influenced who you became?
Well, he was an exceptional person. I mean, we went through such traumatic times, and he had so much integrity, and he never lost his humanity. Even when we had nothing, he would share with others. I remember, for example, at the end of our time in Bergen-Belsen, just before we were exchanged, we received some packages from Sweden. I don't know why we did, who sent them or anything. And so then we were told that we would be leaving the next day. And my father gave all the contents of the packages to the people who were staying behind. Now, I didn't want to do that as a kid because I didn't know where the next meal would come from, and we were all starving all the time. But he insisted, and I've never forgotten. That's just who he was.
What decisions did you make that have impacted your life in the biggest way?
Well, I can think of two. One of them is that I decided to get higher education. I felt that, 6 million Jews were murdered, and here I was. I had survived. It was just miracles and luck that I survived and didn't go the road of all these other Jewish people. And so I felt I needed to live a meaningful life. I needed to do more than the average person. I wanted to get married. I wanted to have children, have a family, but I needed more than that. And so I think even though to pursue higher education was a big challenge when you don't have money, and there were all those opportunities, but you had to work to take advantage of them. So I've never regretted that. I had a very rewarding career, and the other decision came a lot later in my life, because I should mention, we didn't talk about the Holocaust for 4 decades, because when we arrived in America, my very well-meaning relatives who were wonderful, were like parents to me. The first night I arrived, they said, "Now you're in America, you have to build a new life, forget about the past, and never speak about it." And they were adults. I followed this advice, and I think there are, in some ways, that was helpful, because it was a big challenge to build a new life. And I don't know how successful I would have been if I had dwelled on my past, if that had framed my life after the war. That might have really held me back. But so to go ahead and to achieve the goal of higher education and having more choices in life. And then the second thing is that decades later, I came to realize that should I consider myself a victim or a survivor? And I decided that if I saw myself as a victim, then that I would lead a totally different life. I would feel that the world owes me a lot because of what I had gone through, and that I'm powerless, and that a victim is the fate of a victim is kind of to be exploited and to be taken advantage of, and to go along with what other people think you should do or what they want to do to you. And I wanted to be a survivor, and that would make me strong and would make me realize that if I was able to survive Bergen-Belsen, I could survive anything. And besides that, suffering makes one strong, and I could empathize with other people who had suffered and be supportive, and also do things for other people who are persecuted and discriminated against. So it became my decision that I was going to be a survivor and be active in social and political ways to defend those who are needy.
And what do you believe are your biggest achievements?
Well, I was a teacher. That was my profession. And I think as a teacher, you want to have an impact on your students. You want to point out your values or the values of society, and that they should have a social conscience. And one of my messages, I've been teaching in schools now about the Holocaust for more than 35 years, 40 something, almost 40 years. And I consider it my calling that since I have this experience of being victimized and persecuted, and I survived, that other people can also overcome challenges like this, overcome suffering. And so what I mostly try to impart to students is, first of all, they should never be a bystander when they see things that are wrong and unjust. And secondly, that each one of us can make a difference, no matter how small. It is important. And then thirdly, refusing to be enemies. We are often taught, especially as children, that certain people are other than we are, and they are our enemies, and we should not befriend them. And that is a wrong guidance, because I think we should all be open to other people, to hear their stories, to look into their eyes. And when we do that, we'll find out, no matter where they come from, we'll find out that we have more in common than our differences would suggest, because we're all human beings. We're cut out from the same fabric, and the color of our skin or the religious beliefs or the nation we were born in, they don't really matter at the bottom of it. All we are human beings, and we should protect each other.
Well, what moments were pivotal and how did this affect your life? I think you may have touched on that already.
Right. Well, now I have found a very rewarding activity by talking in schools, and I always ask the teacher who invites me to have the students send something to me after my visit. It could be a poem, a drawing, a letter, and I have a huge archive of things that I've received from students, and they're very meaningful when they tell me how my talk has affected them. And so that's what keeps me going. I'm still doing it after not talking for 4 decades. And they're just so touching. You know, it could be a student who says, you've helped me. My father is in jail, or my mother is schizophrenic, or I'm homeless. I moved 10 times this year and I had to give up my pet. You know, all these stories where you can tell they really got it. They really got the message. And that they say, I will never be a bystander, or it's the responsibility of our generation to erase genocide from this planet, statements like that, and it's very touching. So I keep doing it, and it has made a big difference in my life. The other day I got a letter from a student, and she said, I will never forget you because you said that crying is not a crime. I mean,
well, you never know what kids will take away.
Yeah, you do.
Now, are you reading? Are you reading any books these days?
When I have time.
What books are you reading?
Well, I just got a friend sent me a book. It's called Two Sisters from who survived Auschwitz, but I haven't had time to touch it yet. Okay. We belong to Temple Beth Emmet, and our former cantor emeritus, Annie Rose, she has a spirituality book club, and we read a book. It's called My Grandfather's Blessings. I can't remember the author, and so we only read part of it for the monthly meeting of the book club, but we started reading a story every night after dinner. And they're brief, but they're wonderful stories with depth. All of them have depth of one kind. And she's an oncologist. She became an oncologist and talks about her patients and encounters with mostly the medical profession.
Okay.
And how they don't treat their patients as human beings. But anyway, we're reading that, and now it's almost finished, starting another book called The 10 Commandments. It's a series of essays by rabbis.
Oh, okay.
So I have a big stack of books waiting.
And music? Do you listen to music on
Yeah, we listen a lot to music.
So what kind of music do you listen to?
Mostly classical, but we love jazz.
Okay.